Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Zakiya. She is a business and leadership development coach out of Cincinnati, Ohio. So we are really excited to have her here. She's going to be one of our speakers at the 2023 Flourish Media Conference. And so today we are getting to know her. So first question, you have over 20,000 followers on Instagram, which is amazing. How important is this visibility to your business?
So, I have to be honest, while having lots of followers on the surface, it looks good, it's actually very difficult to turn your following into consumers. So, for me specifically, I acquired a decent amount of my followers from eye candy, urban, and fitness modeling, which is a completely different target audience than my actual life skill and profession. So, the audience that I started with is not being captured. It's not the audience that needs to be captured when it comes to my business. And I think that that is something that many people overlook. When people encounter you in a certain space, they kind of anticipate that you're going to stay in that space. And will continue to operate in that space, but the transition and the evolution doesn't always garner the same support. So while visibility is extremely important, it's even more important to engage the right audience. You can have all the visibility in the world, but if it's not being captured by the right people, then it's kind of falling on deaf ears. So, yes, visibility is extremely important, but it's even more important to engage the right audience.
Wow, that's so interesting. It's so cool to look at your profile and see all of your followers and see you have this business. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. What are some of the investments you make to maintain your visibility that maybe people don't think about?
Some of the investments that go into maintaining visibility, I have to say I have at least three. First, believe it or not, is working out. The gym is my number one stress reliever. It is my safe haven. It's really just an added bonus that it does have so many physical benefits and rewards, but it really gives me the fuel and the energy that I need to keep going. Another investment that people might not consider is making sure I take time to myself outside of social media. I'm naturally an introvert. I am an only child by my mom. I was raised between my mom and her parents. And I was raised in that era where the child has to leave the room when the adults are talking. So I spent a lot of time entertaining myself, and typically that was reading a book, or doing a puzzle, or just making sure I was staying engaged outside of the adults, so I didn't bother them. So I really need to be able to take that time to myself. So that I can be present when it is time for me to be visible. And lastly, the time that it takes to post quality content. I don't want to be that person that just posts anything. Now, will I always get it right the first time? No. Am I looking for perfection? No. But what I am striving for is information and content that is resounding. I want what I post to resonate. So I'm trying to be strategic with like my word choice and my captions. And I want people to not only understand, but I want them to take something away from it and to think about it. So again, visibility is important, but the demands that the social media algorithm now create and try to force you into certain posting parameters, which increases the level of difficulty when it comes to trying to post and keep your consumers or your followers engaged. It kind of creates a caveat when you want to be authentic and engaging. So there are so many caveats when it comes to visibility and internet presence, and each of those caveats make it a bit more challenging. So I try to maintain those three things so that I stay present, and I'm able to bring my full self to my internet presence.
You have a PhD.
Mhm.
What are you doing that gives you an edge in this online space? What other that other professionals could be doing as well?
I say that there are two things that I do rigorously. Researching is the first. There is so much information readily available. You just have to invest the time, know how to separate fact from straight up BS and ill founded opinions. And that goes hand in hand with knowing where to pull information from. If you've read anything that I've written, even the most recent blog post I did for Flourish Media, I like to err on the side of unbiased objectivity. It doesn't matter which side of the fence you stand on, you will always be able to access information that goes with either side. But my goal in anything I write is to allow the reader to delineate their own thoughts and not force them or sway them in any one direction. Hoping that when provided with content from both sides, they will use their better judgment in making a rational decision or coming to a rational conclusion. Second, I'm an avid reader. I still really like actual books. To me, it's something about flipping the pages, highlighting, taking notes. Reading is something that I think is extremely valuable, and not just because of the information and your brain's ability to process it, store it, and reference it. It's your body's and brain's natural ability to exercise the mind. That's the real gem of reading. We take in so much fast information that's what's typically being stored, but it's not being stored because we need it. It's being stored because we're constantly bombarded with it. So reading allows our brains to process information on a more intricate level. And although it's slower, the brain tends to absorb it more deeply. So I'd say research your market, research your consumer base, and read. Stay up to date on pertinent and relevant information that will help you garner the support you need, that will help you leverage the business and network that you need. So, yes, read and research.
Amazing. And for those of you in our community that don't know, we actually have a Publish Her conference in November. We did it last November, and that'll be upcoming too. And a lot of our clientele actually are female authors. So that's amazing that you brought up reading as well. It's big in our community too. As a brand, what are some of the big vision goals you have for yourself and for your company?
My vision is to be a safe space for small business owners, entrepreneurs, and leaders. For me personally, I want to change the narrative that attractive women can't exist in this space. And what I mean by that is growing up, I didn't see women that looked like me or carried themselves like me in entrepreneurial or leadership roles. And even now, I feel like women don't get the respect as intellectual contributors. That they deserve when it comes to having a certain aesthetic. And not only that, I think people overlook that none of us operate in one dimension. So, as far as my personal vision, changing the narrative, I can be attractive, I can be an intellect, I can be a leader, and I can still be spiritual. I can still be comfortable in my sexuality, and all of these other things. So, that's one thing, none of us operate in a single dimension. Now, as far as my business, Boutique Business Solutions, I have three main services. I have the virtual leadership development trainings, in which I offer two tiers. I have an introductory course series entitled Unlock the Leader Within, and then I have a more advanced course series entitled Ready to Lead. I offer operational development services, and lastly, business planning services. So my vision is to not only serve the business owner, leader, or executive, but my vision is to educate the owners, the leaders, the executives on the fundamentals that they not only teach in MBA or OD programs, which mainly focus on trends and frameworks and theories, but I want to be able to focus on the person. The person and the people are what makes those fundamental parts of operations work efficiently and effectively. And the leader, the executive, they impact the brand and the brand's longevity. Again, it's more so, it's more than just knowing your product or your service. It's knowing yourself, it's knowing your consumer, it's being able to pivot, it's knowing how to communicate and interact morally in an environment where the political and economic climate is constantly changing and constantly fluctuating. So leadership is really an intentional maturation process and staying up to date in multiple areas. So that's my goal, not to just serve, but to also educate.
And for anyone who's watching this, we're going to link your Instagram in this post. So that way, if you're curious in any of Dr. Zakiya's courses, you can purchase from her directly. Okay, so I'm going to give everyone a little bit of background on our Flourish Media Conference that's coming up. What we do, it's a 2-day event, and we also give out business grants during this event for those who are starting a business or need some extra funding to get their business going. So what would you say to an investor if they wanted to invest in your business today?
If an investor wanted to invest in my business today, I definitely need to work on my elevator pitch. I definitely do. So my grandfather was the first person that I knew that owned and operated his own business and made a living wage that not only supported his family, but allowed him to also be philanthropic and help others along the way. What I didn't learn and understand until until I got older, was that he also previously worked for a larger company, which even now remains till today on the Fortune 500. And he left because even though he was well qualified, they continued to bring in people to have him train, and who were underqualified, and hired those people into positions above him. Now, while I can provide rationale that attributes this to discriminatory practices, I would much rather look at the drive and the grit that my grandfather had, and channel into building his own businesses, which comprised of tax consulting, real estate, and janitorial. He was always thinking future. Although he was an accountant holding a BA in finance and accounting, his redirection was very strategic. He chose fields that would always be in demand. It wasn't about dream chasing, it was about surviving and taking care of your family, taking care of your folks. So, but now as the business paradigm continues to shift, it continues to evolve, the millennials and Gen Zers entering into the workforce have abandoned survival mode, right? They are choosing organizations and opportunities that cater to the well-being of the whole individual. So millennials and Gen Zers don't care about the pay. They do care about the pay, but in essence, it's not their number one priority. They don't care about the flex scheduling. They care about being seen. They care about being appreciated. They care about being heard, and not being drained. And not having to abandon themselves to fit this antiquated mold or ideology. So boutique business solutions, now primary service, the leadership development training, provides business owners and leaders with the tools to harness these high demand environments. What most businesses' existing frameworks focus on is the bottom line, right? So this is extremely important, but you can't build the bottom line if you continue to lose the people who are put in place to build the bottom line. So we have to redirect our operational landscape to the people. And Boutique Business Solutions training program, it guides leaders and business owners on how to leverage what they already have and possess to make it work for the greater good of their business and or developing organization. Leadership training development isn't just a trend. It isn't going away. It is the way of the future, and the business and ownership landscape. And as it continues to shift and be more inclusive of everyday people, minorities, and women, we will continue to see leadership being demanded in these organizations. So, what we most often encounter in organizations is two problems. One, the lack of leadership focused capacity. So that's emotional IQ, self awareness, trustworthiness, integrity. And two, we often encounter a lack of knowledge pertaining to fundamental operational logistics. So most recently, we had this influx of new entrepreneurs and new businesses with a distribution of PPP funds, right? Some people entering into these markets had great service ideas, great business ideas, great products, but they have no idea how to package those products, no idea what their target audience is, no idea whether their brand strategy is quality centric, cost centric, or delivery centric. They just know that they are the owner, they're the boss or the creator, and they have something marketable. The solution to these entrepreneur gaps is boutique business solutions. Our 3 services: the leadership development courses, the business planning services, and the operational development services. And our strategies are guided by statistics that have been relayed over and over and over as being the most effective in the business market. I'm not your average Joe or Jane off the street who read a few books and designated themselves as a business consultant or a leadership development strategist. I've done the work, I've done the research for myself. My methods have contributed to the positive results and outcomes of some existing and thriving small brands. So I would definitely end it with saying leadership development is a raw market with not just potential but unmatched guarantees when you account for the human element and not just focus on operational development. Fact is, these are tools that aren't confined to one area, but are useful in the private sector. They're useful in the nonprofit sector. They're useful in small and large businesses. So the potential is limitless. I created the curriculum. I own the copyright with the trademark pending. So what I offer is exclusive to Boutique Business Solutions. And having a background in not only leadership development, but also industrial and organizational psychology and psychology and criminal justice, I house a skill set and a plethora of information that is rare and really has the potential to transform the business and operational landscape. So this isn't a combination that you find often. And I bet you this isn't a combination that you'll find at a lot of the long-standing consulting organizations and firms that exist. So what I offer is definitely quality, and that is my focus. Again, I want to educate. So I want to be able to contribute to longevity in the business models and frameworks.
Amazing. I love your pitch. And I think all the ladies who applied to pitch their business at this conference are going to be so inspired by your pitch. So, at the stage, some people are at the stage who are attending our conference where they're just beginning their business and they need to get funding. So, how
Mm.
did you fund your business when you first started?
So when I started my business, I actually wasn't working. I was in between jobs. Um, I was struggling, but I felt like the seed had been planted, and maybe that is why I was struggling. This was my time to water the seeds that had been planted. So a few months after everything was solidified, as far as official documentation regarding my brand and my business, I ended up getting a job as a program manager, developing curriculum for students who were behind on the learning curve, and using that income, literally every little bit that I could put towards my business, that's what I did. And I mean, there was nothing easy about this process. I've tried grants, I've tried small loans, and I've been denied over and over and over again, whether it was because of a lack of capital, whether it was because not having a long enough credit history or not meeting the income requirements. It was a lot of grunt work. But I will say, when you're truly passionate about something, when what you have to offer, like I said, I felt like it was planted in me, whether it's an idea, a service, a brand, you're willing to put in that work with what you have. You're willing to sacrifice your time and energy. You're willing to sacrifice that short term gratification for the long term. You're willing to get your hands dirty without the pay or the payoff. So it was really just me penny pinching for a long time. So
Thank you for being so transparent. I know a lot of women are going to identify with your story, and I love that that's why we're coming together is to help women really start and fund their businesses at this conference. When they come up and ask you at the conference, if they're asking you questions, what could they ask you that they would never get from you online?
So online, you won't get a detailed version of my emotional process or my self awareness process. It's kind of a self evolution where you're coming into your own and you're transitioning into this next space or next phase of your life. And something I don't do on the internet is raw emotion. I tend to keep things very surface level on the internet. I don't feel like social media is a safe space for raw emotion. So I use my words very strategically, but I'll always have on my poker face. So I kind of leave my posts up for interpretation, which makes room for assumptions, and that isn't always good. So if you want the detail, the I cry ugly tears version, then ask me how I felt resigning from a job without having a stable income. Ask me how many no's I received. Ask me how I felt alone chasing this vision that only I could see. The internet makes entrepreneurship and ownership look very pretty, but it's a lot of stress, it's a lot of tears, it's depression, it's uncertainties. Even after you get to the pretty part, you still question yourself. So if you want that raw emotion, ask me those questions and I will be very transparent.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your authenticity. And we're so excited to have you as a speaker at our conference, February 17th and 18th in Miami, Florida. And for everyone who's watching, like I said, we're going to put your Instagram handle in this post. So if you want to connect with Dr. Zakiya prior to our conference, feel free to follow her on social media. And she will be with us in Miami in February if you'd like to meet her in person.
Yes, I'm excited.
Me too. Well, thank you so much for coming here today, and thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed and getting to know our community. And we're so thankful to have you.
Of course. Thank you for having me.